Hi, I'm Carmine McClure. You may remember me from such films as Dude, Where's My Valyrian Steel Sword, and Guess Who's Coming to the Wedding Feast. And I'd like to welcome you all to our Aftershow podcast Q&A thingy, whatever the fuck this is, where we answer some questions from the last podcast episode and discuss some extra things about the series. I'm joined here once again by the Dark Lord of Mordor, Preston Jacobs. Preston?
You see, if you picked any other character, I would have had a voice or something for it. What does Sauron sound like?
I don't know. I don't think he ever had any lines. But our first episode was well received by the fans. Once again, we thank you for your support, but let me address the people who want us to get on iTunes and other platforms. I do apologize for the inconvenience, and we will be getting on them shortly. So thank you for your patience, but as of right now, we are on SoundCloud only, with more places soon to follow. As always, links are in the description below, or you can head over to soundcloud.com/redteamreview. As for episode 2, that will be on Preston's channel. We decided that instead of just making a new channel for these episodes, that we would alternate between ours to upload on. However, I do understand that there are many, people out there that are sub to me that don't want to be sub to Preston or vice versa, and that it's fine. As long as you're following one of us on Facebook or Twitter, you will be alerted every time we upload. Also, in the description of every podcast episode, there will be a link to the previous one and a playlist where we, put them all together. So we've got you covered there too. But Preston, what are we going to do for episode 2? Like, what will be the topic?
Well, I think we do a lot of theory discussions, but yeah, definitely for episode 2.
What are we going to do, though? Like, the Dornish Master Plan?
We can talk about the Dornish Master Plan, and I kind of updated it last year. I spent maybe 6 months doing videos on the update to the Dornish Master Plan, which kind of is more of the Roynish Master Plan.
Well, boo-boo, we have to say this episode, too. You're giving too much away. Jesus.
Fair enough.
But theory discussion is something I've wanted to go in with you for a while now, and the format of the next episode is that you'll be explaining to me the basic premise of the theory, character motivation, the end goal, and how it all fits together. We'll also be reading comments and questions before we begin that episode as well, so be sure to leave them down below. Also, Preston and I will be collaborating on another project I have cooking up to bring some of the best parts of the books to those who have never read them. Preston has agreed to come on board with that. So if you're curious about what I'm up to, check out YouTuber Tail Foundry for some hints. I'll leave a link in the description below to his channel. But Preston, you know what I realized? We still don't have a name for this podcast. We do not. It's like a running gag now.
You had sent me something last week that I really liked, and I forgot what it was.
well, the comment section is helping us out a little, and let me run these by you. I have Through the Moon Door, which I think is clever.
That's pretty good. I like that.
The podcast that was promised, which is a slippery slope, because if we say that if a podcast will be released on the 5th and it's not, then we're liars and the promise is broken.
Yeah.
Another name we have here is what is this guy? A podcast of Preston and douchebag. And whoever came up with that, go fuck yourself. But I guess it's a running gag at this point that we don't have a fucking name. We'll come up with one eventually. I do have a cool idea for what the logo of it could be. Actually, I can run by that. I can run that by you right now. Hold on.
Okay. Through the Moon Door is a little. It's a little focused on Sweet Robin. That's why I like it, but I don't know if it represents you too much.
Well, I kind of want to see all the cool names we can come up with before I make my final decision here.
Okay.
But let's get to the questions. And the first question I have here is, do you think there will be a POV character that's a White Walker in either the next 2 books? Or do you think that's a little too much wishful thinking? And for those of you who have never read the books, let me explain a little. Each chapter in the books they're basically point of view characters. Like, for example, in the first book, Ned Stark is a point of view character, so we see the story unfold through the eyes of Ned Stark and how he perceives things. Do you think we will get a White Walker chapter focusing solely on their point of view in The Winds of Winter or Dream of Spring?
That's interesting. I know that in an interview, George R.R. Martin said there won't be any new point of view characters or regular point of view characters for The Winds of Winter. But of course, I think that excludes prologue and epilogue.
Right, because in the prologue and epilogues of every book, there's always some random person. For example, in the first book, we had the prologue was some guy in the Night's Watch. I believe his name was Will. He was the guy in the Night's Watch that was assaulted by the White Walkers. We see him in the first scene of episode 1 of season 1. So I think it's possible. Maybe in the epilogue. Maybe I would like it in the prologue to set things up for Winds of Winter.
Yeah. So some people wonder if there's a pattern to it. If you go for a Game of Thrones, the first point of view is north of the Wall, but then when you go to Clash of Kings, the point of view is Cresson the Maester, and then when we go to A Storm of Swords, it's Chet north of the Wall, and then when we go to A Feast for Crows, it's Pate, a Maester acolyte. And then when we go for a Dance with Dragons, it's Varamir Sixskins north of the Wall. So some people think that, well, it's the sixth book. That means it's Maester. It's a Maester's turn, maybe. If there's this pattern. But it's we don't really have that many books to go with to see if there's a pattern. But I love the Maesters, and I would love another Maester character. Some people, and I don't know where it comes from, but some people are guessing that it's going to be somebody in Jane Westerling's party to observe what goes on with Jane Westerling and maybe getting rescued or killed by the Brotherhood Without Banners or something. I'm not.
You think Jane will be killed off?
Well, this is the thing is I don't know where this comes from or why this rumor is so strong, but some people think that when we last saw Jane Westerling, she was going with a bunch of captives from Riverrun towards Casterly Rock. So some people think, well, if those prisoners are freed, these are all the Frey prisoners that the Freys took at the Twins. So some are coming from the Twins, and I guess some are going to come from Riverrun, and they're going to be heading towards Casterly Rock. And the idea is that, the Freys, the only power and control they have over people are these hostages. So if these hostages are rescued, then the North can be liberated or something. I don't really buy it because it relies on sort of the grand Northern conspiracy, which I'm not actually a believer in.
We're not going to go into that right now, but the Grand Northern Conspiracy, that's can you just sum it up real quick?
The original Grand Northern Conspiracy is an idea that every single house in the North and the Riverlands and the Brotherhood Without Banners, they're all secretly trying to put Jon Snow on the throne. Not that
we'll go into that in like future episodes.
Yeah. Not that there aren't conspiracies. I believe there's plenty of conspiracies. I'm a huge conspiracy theorist in the books.
You don't say.
Yeah, right.
Well, okay, so basically you think there's a pattern going on, and there's clearly a fucking pattern. You think we're probably gonna get a Maester prologue in the new book, in Winds of Winter.
I think that's a really good possibility, and we certainly need more Maester point of views.
If what you say is true, and they're the ones behind it all.
I mean, we do have Sam, of course, and he's gonna be, God, I've just been, really wanting a Sam update, considering we haven't heard from Sam since 2005.
Well, what's happening with Sam, I'm assuming, is he's going through what Bran went through, where he's learning, he's doing his thing, he's learning to be a Maester. When we get back to him, maybe he'll learn enough.
And that's the thing, is in many ways he does parallel Bran in that Bran is in the weirwood net with the trees. He's got all the knowledge. He can see everything all over the world through the weirwood net. Sam Tarly is in the same situation. He's at the Citadel with endless supply of books, so he has all of the knowledge, and he's got a glass candle, so he can see all around the world.
You and those glass candles, my God.
You can't. I mean, you got it. They're part of the story. They're like werewoods.
Mm-hmm.
The glass candles are mirrors to werewoods. So if you think werewoods are important, you're gonna think glass candles are important. So you've got to. But yeah, I mean, Sam is just like Bran in that he's something. George R.R. Martin likes to have these characters, the all-powerful shut-in, essentially this kind of fat, obese character sitting at home who can control the world.
Are you serious?
Oh, they appear in all sorts of his stories. He has so many of these all-powerful shut-ins. He has a book series called Tough Voyaging. He has the Pear-Shaped Man. He has this person. His Wildcard series is about this. The Great and Powerful Turtle is a guy who's like he's a shut-in inside a VW Bug, but he's like the most powerful telekinesis person in the world. And the Pear-Shaped Man is a horror story that won all sorts of awards, and it's this fat guy who can essentially send his consciousness out and trap people and pull them in and absorb them into his being. And Tough Voyaging is about this big bald dude who travels the galaxy in an all-powerful spaceship that has massive weapons and genetic engineering capabilities and can do anything.
Jesus Christ, calm the fuck down.
Oh yeah. I mean,
my God, George needs to calm the fuck down. Holy shit.
Right, because it's. I mean, if you're getting psychological, all of these people are him, right? He's this all-powerful shut-in, right? He has all of this power, and really he likes to sit and read books and write. He is Sam. I mean, Sam is the character in the story that is...
Sam is George Martin?
Yeah, and he's admitted this in interviews. That Sam is the...
Probably why they fucking put him on screen so much. All right. Well, so you think we'll probably get a Maester. So no White Walker?
I would save it. I mean, that's a fun idea. I would love to have that idea. I would save that for the last book.
Right.
I would love to have that.
Like, we could probably get, like, you remember how in season 6, how we saw that little flashback with the Children of the Forest, how she was turning the man into a White Walker?
Yeah.
I would like to see something like that. Maybe the prologue or the epilogue could be set thousands of years ago, and this man is captured by the Children of the Forest, and they're doing magics, and all of a sudden, he turns into one. Maybe it could be focused on that.
I would have them going through the tunnels under. I mean, if I were going to write the story, and I'm not, but I would have it the White Walker prologue. White Walker walking with people through the tunnels underneath the wall, and that would be the big subversion. Like, the whole story, we're waiting for the wall to fall. The wall never falls. They go under it through the tunnels. Gorn's Way, which is something from the book. It's where Jon and Ygritte, when they were fucking in the cave, like, that's Gorn's Way, which leads right under the wall.
Okay, I get where you're coming from. That could yeah, because that would actually be pretty cool once you think about it, because we're all expecting the wall to come down. It never does.
Yeah.
So I get where you're coming from. Next question. Do you think Stannis will die in the books as well, and how do you think it'll go down? Preston, remind us again where Stannis is in the books, because if I recall correctly, he's still trying to gather allies in the north, right?
He is, or gathered. I think he's been successful. Stannis, and keep in mind that in the book, Dance with Dragons, I would say that, talking to fans, their favorite plot lines from Dance with Dragons, and maybe everybody has different opinions, but most people really like the Theon story and the Asha story.
Let me just clarify this real quick for people who don't know. In the books, Theon's sister is named Asha. The show changed her name to Yara as to not confuse her with Osha, the wildling woman that was hiding out with Rickon.
And how they converge. So Theon is in Winterfell, awaiting the arrival of Stannis, and Stannis is marching in the Asha chapters towards Winterfell, and that tension of, every chapter goes and the army gets closer, and then the storm hits, and then the army slows down, and Stannis is 3 days from Winterfell, snowed in at a crofter's village next to a lake, starving.
And he doesn't have Melisandre to help him out. In the show, she's with him and his party along with his family. But in the book, Stannis is only with his army. Davos is not there. Melisandre's not there. Neither is his wife or child.
But he's got Asha Greyjoy.
He has Asha Greyjoy. But Melisandre, just so as the audience knows who don't read the books, Melisandre, Shireen, and Stannis' wife, Selyse, they're all at the wall where Jon has just been stabbed. So Stannis... it looks bleak for him.
It does. Until you start, really reading carefully what's going on, and then there's some possibilities for him. But it's certainly the story is presented like he is the underdog, that he's dying, and that Roose Bolton and the Freys have all of the power. But Roose Bolton is going through some things as well. Like, he's also starving, but it's definitely presented like Stannis is the one that's going to die here, which means Stannis is probably the one that's going to be victorious, because that's how everything goes, right?
Okay, so you think Stannis will win the day. Okay, but what about Sansa? In the show, she comes in at the end with Peter's help and has the Vale Knights rescue Jon only after the Boltons finish off Stannis. Do you think we'll get Sansa in the books to come in and help out at all?
No, I mean, so if I'm going with what I think will happen in the show with the book, I mean, I do think Ramsay is going to kill Roose.
Right.
I do think that's going to happen in the book. And but yes, I think Stannis is going to win this battle, and I think he's going to win the North. But I think somebody else is going to kill him. I think maybe the White Walkers are just going to come in and sweep it and kill him. I mean, Stannis isn't going to make it to the end, but I think he's going to win the Battle of Ice, which is where we are at the end of the A Dance with Dragons. He's just I don't think he's going to make it to the end, but I think he's going to make it a little bit longer. And there's a lot of reasons for this. One of the things is the Manderleys. So before I mentioned a Manderley Umber conspiracy. So in A Clash of Kings, Theon hears about a Umber army that never shows up. And when Roose Bolton calls his banners to fight Stannis, Manderley shows up with 300 men. Now keep in mind, White Harbor is the largest city in the north. They've got thousands of men, and they show up with 300. So the Umbers and the Manderleys still have forces. And in A Clash of Kings, Robb essentially says, we don't have a navy. Maybe we should build a navy. And he orders the Manderleys and Umbers to build a navy.
So you think Robb's order effectively, kept a good portion of the Manderleys and Umbers' men back just to build these ships. Mm-hmm. Therefore, they weren't killed during the Red Wedding or the battles.
Bingo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. I think, and I think this little remnant of Robb's order is going to come back and change things. So I think the Manderleys and Umbers are going to come, and then remember I said Stannis is sitting next to a lake. And the Freys are coming in the book. The Freys are coming to attack.
So wait. So
yeah.
what you're guessing here is that when the Freys come to attack, they think they're gonna just pick off Stannis, but all of a sudden they get to where his camp's supposed to be. He's not there. He and his men have been spirited away on the ship, away from that.
No, I think that the ships are gonna. I think the ships are gonna bring in Manderleys and Umbers, but I think Stannis. So when we last leave Stannis, he's in this Crofters village. And there's a lake there, and they're all starving, so they decide to ice fish the lake. And so they're ice fishing the lake, and they get all the fish out, and they're starving again. But you got to remember, okay, we've got a lake with a bunch of holes in it. And there's an island in the middle of the lake with a weirwood on it. And the last line we have of where they are is Asha says, let's go to that island to sacrifice Theon. So if Stannis and company...
Sacrifice him?
Yeah, well, this is where it gets, interesting. So Theon escapes Winterfell and makes it to Stannis' camp. Mm-hmm. And for some reason Stannis, he's probably lying because Theon is really valuable. I mean, really, really valuable for a number of reasons. But for some reason Stannis says, you know what, we need to kill Theon because the whole North thinks that he killed Brandon Rickon, so we've got to execute him.
Wait, this is in the sample chapters from the 6th book?
It is, yes.
The unreleased 6 books. All right, go ahead.
And so Asha essentially comes in and calls his bluff and says, you know what, you want to kill my brother? I'm not going to argue with you. Go kill my brother. And that's where we end things. And she says, but do it in a northern way. Like, go out to that weirwood on the middle of that island and chop off his head like Ned Stark would have done. Mm-hmm. And that's where we end things. Now, if we suppose that Stannis goes out to that island, I don't think he's actually going to kill Theon. I think he's going to switch out an old man for Theon. And
an old man.
Well, he happens to have an old man. He happens to have Karstark, Arnulf right. Karstark, who's an old man who looks just like Theon. So if he goes to the middle of this island, and the Freys come in to attack Stannis, and Stannis is sitting on that island, and they run towards him. the lake's got all those holes in it. They're going to fall right through those holes. And the Frey armies, half of it's going to die in the lake. And the ones that try to escape are going to probably get killed by the Manderleys and the Umbers that come in on their ships. And,
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, also possible, but so you think Stannis will win, but he won't die until the very last book?
I mean, he might die in the Winds of Winter. I just think he's going to make it. He's going to make it.
He'll win the battle against the Boltons.
That's definitely my prediction. And I've got some predictions for Winterfell. I think Ramsay, or I could see Ramsay killing Stannis eventually. I think Ramsay is going to kill Roose and take control of the Dreadfort men, and who knows what's next. But I think Stannis is going to live another day for a while.
It's a shame he couldn't live another day in the show. Guru asks you, what is your favorite tinfoil theory? I'm assuming it's you told me before, but I forgot. Is it the one where Jon is not the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, it's Dany?
I mean, that's a nice one, but I mean, in truth, I'm not that interested in lineage too much. I don't think it's, that great. I mean, which ones do I think are the funniest and darkest would be, there's a theory that Euron is secretly the Dusky Woman, which is...
What the fuck?
And
explain that one.
So in the book, Euron, there's another brother that's called named Victarion, who is sent to Slaver's Bay to grab Dany and bring her back to marry Euron. And so Euron gives him this woman that he captured, who they just call the Dusky Woman. And Victarion, just starts banging this woman on his long voyage to Slaver's Bay. And so there's a theory that Euron is secretly the Dusky Woman, and he's been hiding he's been glamored as the Dusky Woman to want to spy on Victarion the whole time.
What the fuck? Let me actually just set this up for people to understand. So basically, like Preston said, Theon has two uncles. Euron, who we see in season 6, and another uncle who we don't see in season 6 called Victarion. Euron and Victarion don't really like each other very much. Euron sends Victarion in the books to Slaver's Bay to go meet up with Dany. And Euron gives his brother, Victarion, this woman he captured. We don't see glamoring in the show, but basically what glamoring is magic, right? Would you say it's magic?
Yeah, or some sort of hologram. I mean, either one,
Magic to make someone look like another person. So what you're saying here is that the woman that Euron gives to Victarion is not really a woman, it's just himself to look like a woman. That wouldn't make any...
This is what's so odd, is that since this theory came out, they released another sample chapter, the Aeron sample chapter called The Forsaken. And so this chapter has Euron in it, so it disproves the Dusky Woman theory, because Euron is in this chapter. But it also revealed that Euron was molesting his other brother, Aeron. So on the one hand...
How is that so funny to you? Why is that so funny to you?
Because the first theory, what made it so dark, was the fact that two brothers are fucking. And that's what's ridiculous about it. And so this chapter comes out that disproves that Euron is fucking one brother, but it reveals that he's fucking the other brother. So that's why it's just ridiculous.
You're ridiculous. So what is your favorite tinfoil theory? Like, what's the what's the one you like a lot? Wait, have you done a video on it though?
I mean, what's funny is the theories that I really like are the ones that I don't actually believe in, because I think they're creative but implausible. I really liked the idea that Cersei was trying to poison Tyrion during the Purple Wedding and accidentally killed Joffrey. Like, I felt like that would have been a really cool, dark, ironic thing.
It would fit with her tragic character. Yes.
Yeah. But I recently did a video on it, and in the end, and I think I believed it for a while, but I think in the end I was like, nah, it just doesn't add up, and so that's pretty sad. But I really liked that one. I thought it was creative. I thought it was
What's your favorite though?
Favorite.
You gotta pick one. You gotta pick one.
I know. It's so hard. I mean, oh God. We're going to edit out this long pause.
I promise I will edit out this long pause.
I would say that some of my favorite theories are actually about Sweet Robin. I like the theory that I actually came up with this one where the reason he has seizures is that the souls of the children of the forest that are in his weirwood throne have been trying to take over his body.
What the fuck is wrong with you? That is dark as shit. What the fuck? I mean, okay, that's cool, but he has a weirwood throne. I don't remember this.
Yeah.
Explain this
well,
one.
So in the books, we find out that weirwoods, when people die, their souls and spirits and memories can go into the weirwood. And, the fans call it the weirwood net. Like, all of their knowledge is in there. Mm-hmm. And so, we have to accept that weirwoods contain souls. They contain the souls of the children of the forest. Now, Sweet Robin, his throne in the Vale, is somebody chopped down a weirwood, made a chair out of it, and then brought it up the mountain, and it's a throne for Sweet Robin. And there's some
you can kind of see that in the show, but in the show he doesn't have seizures. He's just kind of like a crybaby little bitch. But in the books, he's more troubled.
Yeah. I mean, he might have had one seizure or something in the show, but he doesn't have regular seizures. That's for sure. But this is a big parallel, because while Bran or Bloodraven are sitting on a weirwood throne in the north, Sweet Robin has a weirwood throne in the Vale, and actually Beric Dondarrion also has a weirwood throne as well. So so these weirwood thrones do appear places, but so we have children of the forest souls that are lingering in the Vale, that are there, and the term seizure, really literally came from to seize. Like, people originally thought that demons were seizing somebody's body. And so when you say seizure, it's a seizing. And, when you think about Bran and him taking over Hodor's body, he's seizing Hodor's body. And when he does that, Hodor had a seizure. And Varamir Sixskins tries to seize somebody as well, and I think her name was, it wasn't Squirrel. Was it Squirrel? Yeah, but
Varamir Sixskins is a wildling in the north in the books who is a ward.
Yeah, and he tries to seize a woman, and she has a seizure and bites off her tongue and spits it at him. So,
what the fuck?
So
I don't remember this.
Yeah.
This was in the A Dance of Dragons.
Yeah, in the prologue of a Dance.
Okay.
The prologue. I mean, I have to admit, the prologue of A Dance with Dragons is a little slow. And so a lot of people forget it or skip over it. It's very long and it's very slow, but it's interesting. But yeah, he decides that he's going to try to seize this woman's body and live a second life in her. But you're not supposed to seize human beings' bodies, only animal bodies. But he decides to try to seize a human being's body. And so seizing, and in a lot of George R.R. Martin's works, seizing people's bodies is a thing. Like, Wildcards had several books about these people called the Jumpers, who could body swap, Freaky Friday, and just body swap, and they were the villains. So, I mean, this is something George R. Martin loves to write about, like having somebody's...
So you're taking what George put in his other books, and you're putting in here with Sweet Robin, who is, by the way, in case the audience doesn't know, is Preston's favorite character.
Robin Aaron, yeah.
So what you're saying is, because his throne is that he has in a Vale is made of weirwood, and they contain the souls of children of the forest, they're constantly trying to kind of invade his body a little.
That's my guess. And
that's not bad. That's your favorite.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool. Have you done a video on this already?
I have.
I need to watch this one. I have not seen this one.
So probably my most out there series, and the ones that's actually a lot of people's favorite. It's called The Minds of Wolves and Robins, and it's on Bran and the Children of the Forest and the others, and the world maybe being post-apocalyptic. And trying to look at like the larger mystery.
You see, this is why people call you, Alex Jones sometimes, because you start to make sense, and then you just go insane for a little bit,
Well, I mean, I could go into the post-apocalypse, but we got a lot of questions to go through. But
we do, but I actually do like that theory that Sweet Robin's seizures are caused by the souls of the Children of the Forest constantly trying to possess him. And just a reminder for those of you who don't know, when we say Sweet Robin, we're actually talking about that kid from the Vale, the one who's in charge. His mother was that crazy woman who Peter threw out the moon door. If you don't remember, I'll put up a picture of him right now if you're watching this on YouTube. But okay, here we go. Next question is... I know Preston has said he doesn't watch other theory videos, and I'm not sure how up-to-date you are with them, Carmine. But there's this one theory that came out of nowhere with these crazy assumptions. Just a quick, brief summary. Lyanna actually hid in the broken tower of Winterfell the whole time and gave birth to Aegon VI. Jon is the son of Ashera and Ned Stark. In a true marriage, Ned was forced to marry Cat, and this is why the Blackfish left. The Tower of Joy was actually a secret meeting with the remaining Kingsguard to discuss the wars to come. Arthur Dayne is actually Mance Rayder. His fellow Kingsguard, Oswald Went, is Coron Halfhand. Gerald Hightower is Tormund. Blah, 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 blah. There is more parts and pieces to this, but that is the general idea. Does this seem like a little too much tinfoil? Yes, it does. Whoever came up with this theory is trying very hard to be Preston Jacobs. Preston Jacobs, your thoughts?
I mean, it sounds very confusing. I mean...
This is what the guy wrote. Yeah. I don't know if he really fucked it up, but this is just a brief summary of it. I mean, Lyanna hid in the broken tower of Winterfell the whole time. You would think that people looking for her would actually look there as well.
Right. I mean, Lyanna was at the... I mean, Ned had a dream where he found Lyanna, so... And that dream was supposed to be like it was in real life. So, I mean, he did have to go rescue Lyanna somewhere. So if she was in the Tower of Winterfell the whole time, that would be kind of weird. I mean,
not only that, but what Ned has said, I don't remember if it was in the first or second book, but don't we know that when Ned went down, south of King's Landing to get her body back, did he bring her body back up?
He brought her
to King's Landing.
He brought her body and nobody else's body.
Exactly. So why would Ned go down south? Because there is proof of him going down south of King's Landing. He somehow gets Arthur Dayne's sword, delivers it to Dayne's sister, goes all the way back up north, grabs his sister's body, comes back down to King's Landing to show Robert, and goes back north again? And you couldn't fake it with a body double. Robert was obsessed with Lyanna, so he'd know if something was off.
Yeah, transportation-wise, it would be really tough. Yeah. I mean, the other thing is the old N plus A equals J theory, which Ned and Ashara being the parents of Jon, it's certainly possible. The only thing that I have one reason why I wouldn't believe it, and that's because it's the first option given in the book. Like, it is the option that Catelyn believes, that she believes that Ashara Dayne and Ned had Jon Snow. And so only because it's the original one given would I say, nah, that's probably not the case. But were Ned and Ashara married? Maybe. I think that's quite possible. That's quite possible. I mean, there's nothing, they could have gotten married at the Harrenhal tournament, found a heart tree and, did their thing. Now Arthur Dayne and being Coron Halfhand and all of that.
No, Arthur Dayne is Mance Rayder.
Arthur Dayne is Mance Rayder.
Yeah, and his buddies are Coron Halfhand is Oswald Went, and Gerald Hightower is Tormund. So there you go.
So I've heard a theory that Mance Raider is Rhaegar.
Yes, I've
And
also heard that,
it's
and I've done a video on it before
oh
explaining
really?
it. Yeah, so once you put it together, it kind of makes sense, but I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't end up being true.
I mean, I understand why it exists because there's a million literary parallels to Mance being Rhaegar. I mean, and just like the Squishers being the others, I mean, like there's parallels that are made, or Sweet Robin on a werewood throne and Bran on a werewood throne. It doesn't mean that Bran and Sweet Robin are the same person. It's just they're making a parallel. And the Mance one makes sense. I mean, it is kind of weird that his beard is brown, but his hair is gray. Like that's backwards. Like your beard goes gray before your hair does. But I mean, and I've also heard people talk about, isn't it kind of weird that the companions that Ned brought down are all from the western coast of the north? And that if you actually look at, and like, so they're saying, oh, that's the transportation route for people being brought to the wall because he brought a guy from Barrowton, he brought a guy from the Rills, he brought a guy from Deepwood Mott, he brought a guy from he brought one of the Hill clans, and it is true that if you follow it up, it's his companions are from the west coast of the north, and so the idea is that he was transporting people to the wall, and that these characters are actually from the Tower of Joy, Rhaegar or Arthur. I mean, I can I understand it. I don't see any big evidence for it.
So it is not Preston.
No. I mean, I'd have to.
It sounds like the guy who made this is trying way too fucking hard to have like that one really big theory to make his reputation go up or something. It just sounds like someone was trying too hard.
I'll have to look at the details. I mean, I don't want to judge it too harshly before I really look at the nitty gritty. Because
I'll judge it harshly for you. It sounds stupid.
But it's a lot at once. It's a lot at once, and even though people say that of me, but.
Speaking of Rhaegar, the Half-Blood Serb asks, so Rhaegar had two sons who he decided to name Aegon? So basically in the series, both book and show, Rhaegar, who is Jon Snow's father, had a wife, Elia Martell, who is the sister of Oberyn. They had two kids. The second child was a boy who Rhaegar and Elia decided to name Aegon. These are the two children that the Mountain kills, and is the reason Oberyn is so pissed off in Season 4. But when Rhaegar and Lyanna hook up, they also have a son, and according to the Season 7 leaks, Sam and Bran find out Jon's true name, and apparently it's supposed to be Aegon as well. These leaks are not confirmed, but we're just going by this information. What this person is trying to say is that Rhaegar is kind of a scumbag, boning these two women, getting them both pregnant, and giving both of his sons the same name. And we do know that Rhaegar's first son with Elia is Aegon, that is his name, because back during Season 2, HBO had a guide for the family trees of Westeros, and we saw the name. Preston, your thoughts? Because it sounds like Rhaegar is kind of a douche here.
I mean, Rhaegar's a douche no matter what, but I mean that's without a doubt. But maybe they're retconning things and they're trying to combine the Aegon plot in with Jon. Maybe they're trying to combine of course in the book we have young Griff Aegon, and maybe they're trying to merge Jon and young Griff's character, and so they're retconning it. I mean, but it didn't seem like the woman was mouthing Aegon at the Tower of Joy scene in Season 6.
It sounded like she was to me. I think his name was Jaehaerys.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that Jaehaerys.
Aemon. People think it's Aemon, which would be cool.
After the Dragon Knight, or after Maester Aemon. Yeah. I'm trying to think of. It'll be funny if it was Daemon. But yeah, Aegon. I don't know. I think it would be very confusing, because unless they're retconning and trying to combine plots, like it would be odd if his name was Aegon. In reality, like the third child should be named. I mean, originally the three conquerors were Aegon, Rhaenys and Visenya. So, with the naming scheme, Rhaegar should have been expecting a daughter that he was going to name Visenya, but he didn't. So I guess, what would you name your kid at that point? Viserys? I don't know, but or maybe there's no logic to it. And
Well, Rhaegar's still a douche. Okay. Pam Lamb asks me, Red Team Review, who are some of your favorite YouTubers, non-Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones, besides Preston Jacobs, of course? This is going to be a very controversial answer. I'm sure I'm going to get flack for this, but like Preston, I don't really watch other Game of Thrones YouTubers. And the reason is because
it makes you angry.
95... it doesn't make me angry, but it's just, they're all boring. 95% of all the Game of Thrones YouTubers are boring as shit, and they don't add anything different. The reason I like Preston Jacobs, Game of Thrones Academy, and even Ozzy Man is because Preston actually adds to the discussion. Like him or hate him, I mean, he actually adds things to talk about. Like the fucking thing about Sweet Robin being about to have an exorcism or something because things are trying to invade his body. Like, that's cool. Like, he's adding to the conversation. The Game of Thrones Academy guys, which is one of the guys I watch, they do things differently. They sit across from each other, they talk, they have good chemistry, and they're historical guys, and I'm a big fan of history. Ozzy Man, who does very short recap type videos, he brings humor into it. I would say there are 5 Game of Thrones YouTubers I watch. Preston, the Game of Thrones Academy guys, and I'm not going to go into the other ones, but, yeah, like, I don't watch Game of Thrones YouTubers because I think a majority of them are incredibly boring, cringy, and just not entertaining. Keep in mind, this is my opinion. If you disagree with me, that's fine, but like I said, I want to watch someone who isn't doing what everybody else is doing. Preston parodies the show. The Game of Thrones Academy guys does it. They do a talk show style thing. Ozzy Man adds humor. A lot of the others just sit there and tell you how they feel. They don't critically analyze anything and just basically feed you the same shit other people have said with a boring voice. I guess you could say I'm boring too, but at least I try to shake things up a bit and go into a different direction in all my videos. I get that some people might find me boring, and that's fine, but unlike a lot of these other guys, you can't say that I sound or do the same thing this other person does. I never heard someone who, does this content utter the words golden hand dildo or place Gendry and TIE fighters in their videos for no reason. And if you do see it, then you know where they got it from. Ultimately, the reason I don't watch many channels that do this content is mainly because they all do the same thing, and finding someone who does something unique is a little difficult. As for non-Game of Thrones, me and Preston have like the same taste. I watch Sunday movies as well, Mr. Sunday Movies, Red Letter Media, Chris Stuckman, Angry Joe. I was actually gonna recommend you a channel, Preston, but your taste in YouTubers are weird. Like, you watch Game Grumps, but you don't play games. That kind of throws me off a little. I was actually gonna recommend you. Have you ever heard of CGP Grey?
No.
Oh, dude, check him out. I don't know if he'd be up your alley. He's like one of those explanation guys. He's really good. Like, he's like one of the best. He was actually my inspiration for doing YouTube. He's really fucking good. Definitely check him out. But yeah, I like historical stuff, like where an old man sits there and tells you the history about the Roman Empire, and then in the next scene you see like actors fighting in Roman gear and stuff. I like stuff like that.
It's interesting to think about like inspiration back then. I think the person that really made me think about getting a channel was, I think, watching Comic Book Girl 17. I think I watched one of her videos and I was like, I could do this.
I'm not even going to correct you because we all know what you're talking about, but I find it weird that you mention her because as much as she enjoys the series, like, she has a Lannister tattoo on her shoulder. As much as she enjoys it, she stopped doing it. I remember in one of her videos called House 2 Retro Review, she got really mad because she did such a good job on her Thrones videos that people wanted more and she didn't want to keep doing them, and she basically tells people to go fuck themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing because I mean, obviously, like what you think you can do and you can handle. And then you kind of look to the next thing, like, what can I do, like, next after that? Like, like Mr. Sunday Movies, like I like his content because they're freaking funny as hell. And him and the Weekly Planet guy, like, they're funny, and I can never be that funny. They just have comic timing, and but I look at the way they animate things and how they present their video, and I'm like, oh, that's, how it's snappy and you kind of want to have that too, and so you want to emulate it,
So, but you're saying though that Comic Book Girl 19, she was your inspiration for making YouTube videos.
back when I started. I now I mean, again, I haven't watched her stuff in years, but it was just, you kind of watch it and you say, huh, I could do this too, because she was doing Game of Thrones Ice and Fire videos back before anybody else was.
That's not true. She was the first. I think she was one of the first bigger YouTubers to do it. But I think that's pretty cool that she was your inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, and you were some inspiration too, because you started a little before me. So.
Aww. That in a sense, I will say this though. I said this to you privately, and I'll say it to you, in public. You were the theory guy, even though we weren't really rivals, and I would, give you shit. I'm glad you didn't take it personally or seriously, by the way, because a lot of people do that. Theories were always your range. One of the reasons I didn't do theory videos is because that's your expertise. I respect your field over there. Like there are certain other like Game of Thrones YouTubers that like do podcasts or whatever. That's their expertise. I let them do their thing. They stay over there. Our podcasts are focused on completely different stuff. I don't cross people's boundaries, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that was always like your side, your area, and I stayed away from that. I didn't do a lot of theory videos because that was, what you were doing. But that's interesting. So she was your inspiration. Anybody else?
I mean, I think back then Red Letter Media had just done like their Phantom Menace like review, I mean, I hadn't become like a YouTube junkie yet, and so I think I was even discovering YouTube, which seems very late to the YouTube game.
That was 3 years ago, Preston. Jesus Christ, you only discovered YouTube 3 years ago. What?
I know. YouTube's like 10 years old, but like, I know it's not 10 years old. Facebook is
11
years old. 11? Wait, is
it?
Yeah. Shit. So yeah, I was late to the YouTube game because, if you remember, YouTube had a lot to do. Like back in the day, it was about Rick rolling and a lot of random crap on YouTube. I mean,
you really love giving the audience clues about how old you really are. I won't say it. That's your personal shit. I'll let you tell the audience how old you are eventually. But you really love back in the day, because for me that was like yesterday.
Rick rolling like stopped like what, like 6 years ago, 5 years ago,
something like that. It still goes on every now and then.
But it was the I mean, everything, and then different software and video equipment and things like that. I mean, all these different things, all these critical masses have to happen at once for you kind of be able to like get on the train and decide to do something. And I don't know. It's just it was all kind of random. Anyway, we're like getting nostalgic.
You're getting nostalgic. Me, like I said, this should happen for me like yesterday. But yeah, like I one of the reasons I don't watch a lot of Game of Thrones YouTubers is because I personally think a lot of them are boring. There's this one girl who she tries really hard to be edgy and funny, and you can tell like she's not normally, so it's so cringy. It's just, I don't know, a lot of the Game of Thrones YouTubers are just. And please don't recommend me any. Like I will make. I hate when people do that. Like I'm aware of a lot of them. Please don't recommend me any. I have my favorites, and I want to stick to those favorites. I know a lot of people have their favorites, but please don't do that. I'll make a video in the future of my top 5 favorites. But I like watching historical things. What History Channel used to be about before they fucking changed everything. Anyways, moving on. Haley Hart asks, how will the show handle Sansa and Tyrion's reunion?
Huh.
I don't know if they'll ever reunite again. I would like to see that. Maybe at season 8 when everybody's like, having a party because they just defeated the White Walkers. There'll be like an awkward scene between Sansa and Tyrion where they nod at each other. Hey. That's it. That all needs to be said. I think that's what they'll do.
Yeah, That's a toughie. You know, I was actually I had a discussion just a week ago about how much of Sansa and how much of the Sansa plot is perhaps extracted from the original Arya plot. Like you know how in the original George R. R. Martin outline, uh, Jon Snow and Tyrion were both going to be in love with Arya, and they were going to fight over her. And then, that things changed, and what we actually got was Tyrion briefly falling in love with Sansa, and then moving on to other things. But and I wonder if that was like some sort of residual idea in George R. R. Martin's head.
I just want to make sure. I just want to make it clear. If you're saying Tyrion briefly fell in love with Sansa, you're talking about the books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't put that in the show because I didn't get none of that.
Any vibe at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose you're right because they amped up the Shay plot. And the Shay jealousy and all of that went on for a long
Which made her betrayal in the end made no sense.
It's true. I mean, in the book, Tyrion is much more of a sucker. He likes the poor girl that he can protect, and so that's his thing. Like Tysha, followed by Shay, followed by Sansa, and then eventually Penny, like this dwarf girl that's in the book. Like anyone with a sorry story, that's what gets Tyrion going. That's what floats his boat.
Well, we all have our things. Like for me, it's like hot blondes with blue or green eyes. We all have that one thing that makes us weak in the knees, that makes us all suckers. So there you go.
Yeah, it's true.
But the show handles Sansa and Tyrion. In all honesty, I don't think those two ever meet up again. I mean, do you honestly think so?
I guess they don't need to. I mean, the show tried to have them have like a friendship briefly, very briefly, but they did have this like friendship. And so there was nothing super emotional about the whole thing. I mean,
yeah.
He doesn't, and he's yeah.
Before their friendship could take off, the Red Wedding happens, and she kind of just like hates anything Lannister. So
yeah, so I don't think it's important. They wouldn't have much to say to each other, which is interesting because I'm actually, it made me think of the Sansa Jon scenes because Sansa and Jon, have no screen time in the beginning, and then they meet up together and they really don't have anything to say.
I love how they like shoe in, sorry how horribly I treated you. I was like thinking, I was trying so hard to think. I actually went back to the first 4 episodes of season 1. I was trying to look for scenes where Sansa treated him like shit. They have no scenes together. In fact, I don't even think Sansa has any scenes with Robb or any of the other male Starks.
God.
No, she doesn't.
No. I mean, besides when they're standing in the line, but that's it.
Right.
God, you're right. But because the thing is, and so season 1, book 1, Sansa and Arya, like that's the story is the difference between Arya and Sansa and their relationship and how they're mirror images of each other. Like Arya is this strong, feminist girl who won't stick to her gender roles. Sansa is the traditionalist, who wants to be very girly girl. Mm-hmm. And they're supposed to be mirror opposites, and that's the plot. Yeah, the relationship with the boys, except for Arya's friendship with Jon Snow, like none of the rest of it's relevant. Yeah. So yeah, there would be no need for those scenes. Yeah.
So most likely won't happen. I can see that. I mean,
yeah.
If the show ends without them ever reuniting, I wouldn't throw a fit about it.
Yeah, I'm not sitting there going, oh man, that's gonna be awkward. I mean, I would have much rather had like a good Varys Daenerys scene.
Oh God, yes. or maybe even like we've never had a Peter Baelish Jon scene, have we?
No, that would be weird.
That'd be a weird one, but I would like to see how he tries to spin Jon into his web. But let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Do you think Season 7 will be as much fan fiction as Season 6? And do you think D&D Dan and Dave, the showrunners, actually read A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons. I think they read all the books. They would have to. They would be shitty at their job if they didn't. But I feel as though they thought a lot of the A Feast for Crows and Dance of Dragons stuff could be winded down and summed up instead of fleshed out like they did the first three.
Yes. I think that, yeah, they definitely read the books, and they definitely recognized the general themes of the story. I think the things they forget is,
consequences.
The consequences, the logic, the motivation, like the detail, and George R.R. Martin becomes even more detailed as the story goes on. So I think they thought they could sum everything up, and
well, okay, him being more detailed, it's a good and bad thing, because I don't know about you, but I can't fucking stand when this motherfucker just writes pages upon pages of like food and details the food, and I'm like, come on, dude, stop it.
Yeah, no, I was reading something a while ago about how vastly different a Game of Thrones is from A Dance with Dragons. So like a Game of Thrones, like a chapter later, an entire massive battle has happened. Like the Battle of the Whispering Woods happened off screen. Like this huge battle that like had huge implications off screen. Like, and meanwhile,
is the Battle of the Whispering Wood where Jaime gets captured?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And so even, that's off screen. Meanwhile, the Battle of Ice, Battle of Fire, these have to have like seven characters are like observing these different battles going on. They couldn't have them off screen. Or in a Game of Thrones, Catelyn gets on a ship, and then she's in King's Landing, and then then she's at the at the crossroads. I mean, there's such a huge jump in distance while we go through like Tyrion's painstaking journey all the way across the world.
In the fifth book.
Oh yeah, in the fifth book. So the story is slowing down. Well, Game of Thrones, I think, takes place over a year and 3 months. And
something like that.
Yeah. But A Storm of Swords is only like 4 months by itself, and it's a bigger book. So it's interesting how the timeline is, slowing down. The details are getting greater. So yeah, you're right. There's some downsides.
We're branching off too much. Will season 7 be fan fiction as season 6?
Yes,
from
absolutely.
what we read, if those leaks are correct. It's like Preston said, it's a battle of good versus evil. I was actually having a conversation with other people about this, what you said about it being true. Like, I would appreciate the show a lot more if each faction had their own good guy person in them. Like Cersei's faction, there's that one person in the back that you actually care about and is a nice guy. Or, maybe Euron's faction, or, House Bolton has like that one guy you really like and care about. And
like even if you don't like Stannis, you like Davos. Like some people hate Stannis, but everybody loves Davos. So they want Davos to succeed. They want Stannis to succeed because they want Davos to succeed, Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, it is very, very much fan fiction. And it's like you said, when's the last time someone got maimed? When's the last time someone lost a hand, lost a head? An important true character. I would like to see what you said come true. I really hope it does happen. Like Arya's about to kill Peter Baelish, and he suddenly turns around and slices her throat, and everybody's like, "Oh shit!"
Right? Arya, like, yeah, like that.
You wouldn't see it coming. What happened with the waif? You killed the waif in a cool way, and then fucking Baelish kills you. What?
That would, I mean, if that happened, I'd be like, okay, D&D, like you've got my ears perked up. I'm interested now. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Yeah. Like I said last time, like we haven't had a shock since Jaime lost his hand. Like no major character has died. No major character has been maimed, since Theon lost his penis and Jaime lost his hand.
I agree. Next question. Old Nan asks, question to Preston and Carmine. Who do you think dies in the final season of the show? Cersei? I want Jaime to stay on as Kingsguard. Maybe Dany gives him a reprieve and says, you did betray my father. I understand the reasons why you did. But your crime will be you serve me for the rest of my life.
I mean, if I think that if they were staying true to George's story, I think in the final season of the show, everybody dies except for like Sansa. You know, like honestly, like everybody dies, and then Sansa's like,
Well. I actually got the someone related to the show actually sent me a Facebook message about what happens at the end. Basically, what happens is all the main characters get captured, and they bring back Joffrey, and Joffrey orders Sir Ilyn to chop everybody's heads off. So that's what happens at the very last page and the very last episode of the show.
A White Walker Joffrey? That would be incredible.
A White Walker Joffrey.
Joffrey comes
he
out
brings
of his
Ilyn,
frickin'...
He brings Ilyn Payne back.
White Walker Ilyn Payne?
Mm-hmm.
Ilyn Payne's not even dead, but, well, I mean,
he's gonna be.
The actor's dead, but...
Oh, God. Yeah, but like, realistically, you think everybody will die, or...
I think everyone. I mean, if look, D&D do recognize the major themes of the story. They're not as much as I make fun of them. They're not complete fucking idiots. They recognize that this is an anti-war story, and in order for it to be an anti-war story, the characters need to die. We need to show the perils of war, and
look, I just hope Gilly dies. I'm so sick of that bitch. I'm just so sick of her. I get what you're saying. Yes. I'm gonna move along a little faster here, if that's okay.
Sure.
Someone has a question for your channel. Shawnee O'Brien asks, question for Preston: will you be adding any new characters to your reviews this year? Those of you guys who don't watch Preston, you basically have your own set of characters that make fun of the show, right?
Yes.
Will you have any new ones?
Quite possibly. I think there's going to be. I think there will be more characters than just Brandon, Sweet Robin, and Chad. I think perhaps some older characters that you've seen before, but and maybe some characters that as the show goes, I feel need to be added.
Could you add a character for me that that every time something stupid happens, he just thinks it's awesome?
That's what I have. I have Chad Summerchild. Chad Summerchild is like the bro watcher of the show that believes that like, it's like that everything is just great.
Well, could you give Chad Summerchild really stupid curly hair and wax his chest? Maybe. That's, by the way, that's also gonna be another running gag. We have to make fun of that asshole every fucking episode, every video. We're gonna have to make a jab at him. I'm sorry, I just can't live without doing that. Let me see. So you're all gonna add new characters?
There will probably be some new characters and some characters from some other places. I mean, people know about Gilbert Farwind and other people that have appeared.
You remind me of this one YouTuber. He just uploaded a video. He's a nice guy. Apparently his wife was such a big fan of mine. She wanted like an autograph or some shit. Whatever. What's his name? His name on he's an insane guy, and you're reminding me of him really. The King Cow Show. It's basically this insane guy who all his videos are just, I guess they're political commentaries, but he does political commentary with puppets. And they're all characters and shit. And I think one of his puppets have like facial hair. Like, I don't know. You're running with him with like his characters. But okay, so you're gonna add new characters to your show.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that's very funny is I'm not very good with voices. Like, and so a lot of people are like there's like professional voice people out there that you could play in, and it's like. Look, part of what's so ridiculous and funny is the fact that this is like my own ridiculous dumb voices that are clearly my voices with like horrible animation.
And people think you're being as serious as possible.
Right. I mean, or serious in my comedy. You know, like it's like I've done a Dario character, and for some reason I was like, well, I don't have very many accents, so Dario is gonna be French, and so I put on a French accent for Dario.
Well, he is flamboyant, so that makes sense. Muttering Mushroom asks, with characters that are dead in this show, but alive in the books, like Stannis, Barristan Selmy, Mance Rayder, etc., how much do you think their fates will differ from their show counterparts? So, yeah, Stannis is alive. He is currently en route to Winterfell. Barristan Selmy is in Meereen. He is leading the defense against the slave masters that come back to, hurt Meereen. And Mance Rayder has been captured by Ramsay. What do you think is going to happen? Well, Stannis we already went through. But what do you think is going to happen to Barristan? Do you think he will die in the defense of Meereen?
That's what a lot of people think, which it's quite possible. I mean, right now in the story, the battle seems to be going quite well for Barristan. And so, really...
It's Game of Thrones, so he'll probably trip on a ladybug and die or something.
Right, exactly. Or some people say, like, why do you love Sweet Robin so much? He's like a sickly kid who's gonna die like any moment. And I'm like, that means he's fucking indestructible. In
Game of Thrones, yes, you're exactly right.
The same with Theon. Like, oh god, like you feel bad for him and you want him to die, and you're like, nope, he's not. He's gonna make it to the end.
Oh, they're gonna torture the shit out of him some more.
So I think there's a good chance that Barristan will die. Mance Rayder, I think, has more story to him. He's too fascinating. He's too interesting. There's just so much more you can do with him. He's so fun. I mean, it was so fun, the fact that, like, this character from the north is brought and meets Theon and things like that.
Well, from what I remember with Mance Rayder, Ramsay has captured him, and supposedly Mance is outside, with harsh conditions, naked, in a cage, with nothing but the skin of his spear wives clothing him and shielding him from, like, the harsh cold. It seems like he's done or is about to die.
Yeah, but the letter, I would say most big fans think that the letter is a forgery, and so Mance is probably doing something else. He's probably hiding in the crypts or something. But but I think there's more story for Mance. He's too good of a character to kill off at this point. And. Yeah, he's I think there's going to be more. I mean, there's some other characters out there that are like Gren and Pip are still alive in the books. People forget about them. I don't know what's going to happen with them.
This next question, this one guy asks, Preston, why did you choose to partner up with Carmine out of all the other Game of Thrones YouTubers?
It had to do with, I mean, we chatted a few times, and so we knew each other from back in the day. But also, it has to do with, like, our channels are around the same size. We kind of have a similar level of like interest and dedication to our channel. Like, neither one of us is like completely doing it full time, nutso, but neither one of us is like, this is just some random thing that I do every month. Like, so we have a similar level of like commitment and size of our channel, and we get along, and we have been in the game for a similar amount of time. We're kind of old schoolers. So I think that was it.
I think the only complaint you have about me is that I wasn't at Woodstock 2. Probably the only I wasn't at Woodstock 2 or Woodstock. When was Woodstock 2?
I think one of them. I'm trying to think. It was it 90? Was one of them in 99 and the other in 94?
Okay, so if it was 94, then I was 3. I don't think I could go into Woodstock 2 or 3 because 1999 I was 8 years old. So there you go.
It's too bad. 90s was a really good decade.
Oh, I know. What's funny too is like, you are like, one person said one time how you and I should totally go to Comic-Con together and like cosplay. Cosplays, right?
Yeah. That's where you dress up someone like a schoolgirl and have sex with them.
Something like that. Have sex with octopuses. Octopi. But someone said we should go to Comic-Con and cosplay as like Game of Thrones characters. And I was thinking about it, like, the audience doesn't know this about you, but you are incredibly tall.
Yeah,
Like, you're the
yeah.
second tallest guy I've ever met. The first tall will be my buddy Bane. He's 6'7". You are 6'5". I am
6'5",
like
almost
what?
6'6", yeah.
Jesus Christ! I am like what, 5'6", 5'7", around there.
Oh.
But if we do go to Comic-Con dressed up, you got to be the Mountain, and I'm gonna be Oberyn because South American.
You,
but...
you don't want to do Hodor and Bran? You put you in a backpack.
Hodor and Bran. I didn't think of that. Jesus fucking Christ! Yeah, I did that too. There you go. Okay, so this is the final question by a person named Mother. There's one question I can't find the answer to, they say. Quaithe said to Dany, "Remember who you are, Daenerys Targaryen. The dragons know. Do you? What does this mean? I know there are some parts of Dany's history that don't appear to fit the picture. Everything she knows about her previous life is stuff fed to her by her brother Viserys, who is probably not the most trustworthy person. She obviously wasn't used to living in a royal household, as Viserys had to tell her how to dress, how to stand, and all that stuff. The biggest anomaly is that Dany speaks fluent High Valyrian, whereas Viserys, her brother, does not. If they were raised together by Sir Willem Darry, who Dany remembers as a grey bear of a man with soft hands, why do they not have similar experiences? In actual fact, Dany's Sir Willem Darry does not fit the profile of a Master-at-Arms. His hands are soft, more reminiscent of a maester rather than a Master-at-Arms. How many lies has Dany been told? Is she really the sister of Viserys, born in a storm, as he says? Is she some random Essos girl who happens to have Targaryen looks and was chosen to be the sister for Viserys? As I've said before, there's little evidence that she and Viserys were brought up together, as they don't have the same experiences. The Red Door and the Lemon Tree from her childhood are evidence that Dany was not actually brought up in Braavos, as the only place citrus can be grown is in Dorne. We see this when we visit Dorne in the show. Doran Martell is sitting in his chair on his terrace, surrounded by orange trees. From Arya's time in Braavos, we don't even see a single red door or even a lemon tree. So, what's going on here? So this is a big question.
Huge,
and,
yeah.
And I saved this for last because you read this, I gave this to you ahead of time so you could prepare your answer. Let me give a little bit backstory here, because this is not in the show, and some people have not read the books, of course. So basically, when Dany was a young girl, she does remember, there being this one guy with soft hands who, was basically taking care of her and her brother. His name is Willem Darry. He was not a Kingsguard. He was the Master-at-Arms at King's Landing, right?
Yes.
His brother was the Kingsguard. And basically, what she remembers from her childhood is that where they lived, there was this red door and this lemon tree, right?
Yes.
And apparently, lemon trees don't grow in Braavos. If there was a red door somewhere in Braavos, Arya would have probably run into it, because, George does like to tie things together. And the biggest anomaly here about Dany, the weird thing about her, is that she speaks fluent High Valyrian, and her brother, Viserys, does not.
Well, that one... So on that particular point, we don't know Viserys' level of High Valyrian. I imagine... Viserys grew up the first part of his young life in King's Landing. He would have had that be part of his education. So he would speak some High Valyrian just because that's part of a royal education.
But he died before he could actually speak it.
Well, we don't know. We don't know how much he speaks. We never see Viserys speaking High Valyrian. I would say that he does speak it because when he's in Vastoth Rock, he doesn't like hanging out with the Dothraki or Dany, and he spends all of his days chilling with traitors and drinking with them. And in fact, when he gets drunk and goes in and gets killed, he's been drinking with traitors all day. All these traitors that are in Essos are going to speak High Valyrian. So I think that, yes, Viserys does speak High Valyrian. And so the question is, and some people say, well, Dany must have learned her High Valyrian from Viserys. Maybe. I think she learned, she could have also, like, wherever they were staying, they might have had a live-in tutor, at the houses that they happened to stay in. But True. No, I definitely think Viserys speaks High Valyrian. We never see him do it in the books or the show, but it just makes sense that he would. He grew up with a royal education and then lived in Essos. He's a dick and all, but at some point he's got to buckle down and learn the language. But everything.
And then what about the Master of Arms?
Sir Willem Darry. So the reason this is such a huge issue is almost every single fact that Dany remembers from her childhood is off and wrong and doesn't make sense. So Sir Willem Darry was the Master at Arms. She describes him as a great bear of a man, but with soft hands. Of course, if you're a Master at Arms, you should have calloused hands because you're fighting with a sword all day. George R.R. Martin loves to write about calloused hands in his writing. It comes up a bunch. Robert, for instance, slaps Cersei and he has calloused hands and she feels the calluses. It's a thing he noticed. It's a thing he pays attention to. When he revised Tough Voyaging, one of his books, he took away the main character's calloused hands. I mean, he thinks about it. So that doesn't make sense, that he would have soft hands. It doesn't make sense that he's a great bear of a man because he ends up dying of a wasting sickness, meaning you should be wasting away. He shouldn't be a bear of a man. He should be thin. She remembers him screaming from a bed, but then she also remembers him like walking in on a cane. There's not a single fact about Dany's childhood that makes sense. Not the red door, not the weather, not her running across a grass field barefoot, nothing. You could write. I could go on for hours and hours about how many mistakes are in her childhood and what she remembers. Mm-hmm. And so I'm pretty confident that there's something wrong with Dany's childhood, that what she's been told by Viserys is a lie. She didn't grow up in Braavos. She grew up somewhere else. And the question is she actually the son of the Mad King?
You mean the daughter of the Mad King?
Daughter of... that would be the twist. She's the son. This whole time, Dario didn't notice. But no, I think she's someone else. I think she has a mysterious past. I wonder if she's actually the daughter of Rhaegar. She has a past that is mysterious, that George R. R. Martin has been keeping a secret and will reveal. And Quaithe is getting at that. She is getting at, you need to like wake up and remember like your true past. And it's a big difference between the show and the book. Yeah.
Do you remember that do you think it's possible that if she is the daughter of Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark, that Ned knew this, took her, left her at Dorne or something? Do you think that's possible? So
one of the things I'm pretty sure of is if you actually go back and read Ned's story, like just Ned's story, and everybody, a lot of fans like read the story from a Jon perspective, and so everything's about Jon. But if you read Ned's story and you think about Ned by himself and who that story is about, Ned's story is mostly about Cersei, Robert, and Daenerys. And Jon comes up like literally twice. He thinks about Jon. But Daenerys is a huge aspect of it. Like when he first meets Robert and they then have lunch in the Barrowlands, Robert's comes to him and says, okay, you're my hand of the king. I've got this problem, Viserys and Daenerys are problems, and they're marrying Dothraki, and they're gonna come invade. And Ned gives, honestly, the worst advice. He says we should ignore it. We should ignore it because it's a rumor from Jorah Mormont. Like, who cares if it's a rumor from Jorah Mormont? Oh, it's a rumor from a slaver. Therefore, we should forget it. No, like Daenerys and Viserys really are trying to invade Westeros with.
So it sounds like Ned is like trying to say, it sounds like he's trying to move away from that. He's trying to discredit the information.
He's trying to discredit the information with really bad logic. He's trying to protect Daenerys for some reason, and he tries to protect Daenerys later, and he gets super emotional about it. So the question is, why is Ned interested in protecting Daenerys. And there's many explanations. Maybe Daenerys is the daughter of a Shara Dane, and he wants to protect the daughter of his ex-girlfriend. Or, there's a lot of different ideas. But, there seems to be a connection between Ned and Daenerys.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go on his story is about her, Cersei, and Robert. Like, that's his story. Discovering who Robert and Cersei are as people and protecting Daenerys.
Yeah, and once you think about it, once you go back in season 1, episode 5, he really does. He goes, the small council kind of challenges him on this too, and they start to make more sense than him. He goes, "You bring us the whispers of a traitor, half the world away, and call it fact." I'm trying really hard to do in that start.
Yeah.
And the small council really gets in on him, but I guess you could say the motivation for Ned not really wanting Dany to die is that she's a child. In the books, Dany's like, what, 14, 15? I know that in the show they, bump her age up, but she's basically a child, and he's not about killing children. Not only that, but he's already probably assumed that Viserys is just using her to marry the Dothraki to get back on the throne, so there's that. So...
I mean, if he knows that, if he's thinking about that kind of stuff. I mean, if maybe he has a soft spot for little girls because if the story begins with him beheading a scared little boy. I mean, maybe he's not that little, but he's still a young boy. He's still a young boy. He calls him a boy, and he beheads him because he's scared of White Walkers. So I mean, he's a bit of a hypocrite.
Well, I wouldn't say he's a hypocrite. He's just, as always, as the Starks always do, with Robb and Ned, they're doing their job. His job is to capture and behead any deserter of the Night's Watch. That's what they're there for. They're in exile at the Wall, and he's running away from that. And there's a punishment for that, and there you go. That's the punishment.
And the argument would be is his job as Hand of the King is to protect the realm from people that are trying to invade. I mean, it's a real threat that, like, Dany marrying Drogo is something that you should absolutely be scared of. And yet, Ned dismissing it is one of the weirdest things. Like, I could maybe see later on when he says, "Oh, poisoning Dany is just dirty," and fine. But the fact that I actually think the discussion in the Barrowlands is the worst crime of Ned. Like, saying that we shouldn't worry about a Dothraki invasion, for no reason, it's really rough. And also, the minute Robert dies, the very first action that Ned takes is to go to Varys and say, "Okay, reverse that order to murder Daenerys." That's his first call. That's his first action. There's a lot of things to get done. Protect your own kids, protect Arya and Sansa, put them on a ship,
And Quaithe says to Dany, "Remember who you are, Daenerys. The dragons know. Do you?" What is that really supposed to mean? Like, is there memories that Dany has forgotten, or maybe they're put in? You like to say how certain people like to use glass candles to go into people's dreams and stuff. Do you think someone went into Dany's mind and erased certain memories?
That's certainly a possibility. I mean, Quaithe has been going into her head, certainly, but. Also, I mean, she has a telepathic connection to her dragons, so they might, if she has a repressed memory or a forgotten memory, or something that's hazy from before she was 4 or 5, because we just don't remember stuff back then. It may be that the dragons with their telepathy and connections can get into a part of her mind that she can't.
That's also a possibility. Yeah, that would actually make more sense. And the whole her speaking fluent High Valyrian, I mean, there are things that happen in the books, even like in the show, that happens, off screen, or when we're not focusing on our characters.
Yeah.
Where things do happen, and I guess it would be boring to sit there and listen, read her trying to learn Valyrian.
Yeah, it's interesting. She speaks it with a Tyrashi accent. So wherever she learned it from a Tyrashi kind of teacher, or spoke a lot of Tyrashi. But it's just kind of, Yeah. I mean, what's also kind of interesting about the show is and the books is there's this weird aspect of characters learning from their past trauma. So like Viserys, horrible person, but Dany uses the knowledge of that Viserys had. It saves her several times over the show, whether it be High Valyrian if she learned it from him, but he's the one that knew about feeding dragons. He's the one that knew about like battlefield tactics, and he told these all to her in stories. And so even though Viserys is a complete bastard, he posthumously saves Dany a number of times, which is kind of interesting.
It's actually kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna wrap things up here, Preston. Thank you everybody for joining us. If you once again, as always, if you enjoyed, please consider subscribing to myself and Preston. Episode 2 will be uploaded to Preston Jacobs' channel. I'll leave a link in the description below to his channel. We will be talking theory discussions, and once again, like I said in the beginning, if you don't want to subscribe to Preston, understandable. As long as you're following myself or him on social media, we will alert you guys whenever a new video comes out. This podcast will also be on SoundCloud. It will be on iTunes in the future and Google Play as well. So thank you all for watching. Preston, is there anything you want to say to the audience before we sign off?
Holla.
Holla at you.
No, it's good.
I fucking love how like you don't own the Preston Jacobs Twitter. I love that. I don't know why I find it so funny. You don't own Preston Jacobs.
There's Preston Jacobs out there. I mean, there's a bunch.
Yeah,
of
but
them.
this fucking guy made the Preston Jacobs Twitter, like 2 years after you started your own channel. Like you had a little under 2 years to make your own Twitter, and this fucking guy just message him and say, hey, can I have this?
No, first of all, I remember going on and being like, I want to be Preston Jacobs at Preston Jacobs. And I couldn't be, so I had to be Preston Jacobs at Sweet Robin 9000.
9,000? What 9,000?
I don't know.
All right, dude. At least tell me you own Preston Jacobs on Facebook. You don't own Preston Jacobs on Facebook? Who the fuck is this guy? Oh, never mind. Never mind.
Preston Jacobs. Jesus, there's more. Everybody's people have the name.
People have the name, but this fucking guy on Twitter, he took Preston Jacobs, Twitter.com/ like watch him message you and say, hey, you want this name? $10,000. Like watch him try to extort it from you. And there are a couple people following him. I'm assuming they're all fans of yours. Yes, they're all fans of yours. You know how I know they're all fans of yours?
Because they're also subscribed to me.
Because they're all following me on Twitter.
Oh.
Dude, just message this guy. Like the fucking guy took Preston Jacobs' Twitter, and he's never tweeted. You don't even know who this guy is. He only took it just to fuck you. Just to give you a fuck you. I find that so funny. What's your Twitter? What is it again?
Preston Jacobs at Sweet Robin 9000.
Hold on, Preston Jake. At like the at symbol?
I think so. Or yeah.
9,000. Let's see if this works. No, that's okay. Is it at like at? No. What the fuck is your Twitter? What is your fucking Twitter?
It says I'm on it right now. Preston Space Jacobs at Sweet Robin 9000.
Holy shit! Let me see this. I'm trying to find you. I so can't.
You follow me, right?
That's right. I got you here. No. You're wrong. Your URL is Sweet Robin 9000.
Oh.
You don't even know your own. Jesus Christ.
Oh.
You know what? I shouldn't be talking shit. Because like someone owns Red Team Review at Gmail. I don't own that. Someone owns that, so I had to be stuck with like official Red Team Review at Gmail. So, anyways, yeah, follow Preston on his Sweet Robin 9000 Twitter. Get the latest updates on what we're doing with this podcast, but it will be on SoundCloud, soon to be on iTunes and Google Play. And we will see you guys next time. Have a good one.